My humble pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Brothers and sisters, Jai Sai Ram to you all. In this time of uncertainty and fear with the pandemic of COVID-19, we pray that you are all safe and well, and we thank all the key workers who are out there serving Swami in their own way. So I am fortunate to be inviting our guest speaker for today, Brother Leonardo Gutter, who, as you know, is part of Prasanthi Council and has been in Swami's fold for over 4 decades and has had many posts. Brother Leonardo, as you know, was also our first speaker on the Sai Karuna Talks 4 weeks ago, and he shared some wonderful gems with us that Swami had given to him personally. Firstly, never be angry. If we know that Swami is the doer, then he'll always protect us. Always smile. If Swami is looking after everything, then we have nothing to worry about as well. And never criticize anyone. Take Swami with you from the moment you wake up, throughout your day, and then when you go to bed as well. And we're thankful to Brother Leonardo for agreeing to give us a second talk as well. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Brother Leonardo Gutter. Jai Sai Ram.
I offer my humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Master and Lord Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And I offer my love to all of you as well. Sai Ram. First, I would like to share with you a beautiful gift that Swami gave me after our last talk, our last call. A couple of days after our call, I went to another part of my house where I have a beautiful picture of Swami. I turned on the light because I needed to arrange something, and then I left. Then I returned to turn off the light. And when I turned off the light, before doing that, I found this below the picture. This is, let me see, like this. This is a card that you issue in the UK that I didn't have it in my house. I was there, so I think Swami presented this as a gift. It seems that he liked the call we had. I pray that I will be able to speak with the language of my heart and that you will listen with the ears of your hearts. Because I had the opportunity to listen to our last call and I realized that my English pronunciation is a disaster. So I'm very sorry for that. But if you like it and if Swami liked it and gave me this card, it seems that you have heard it. I appreciate very much that you remember the 10 spiritual commandments, practical spirituality, I call it. As you said, the first one was never to be angry. The second, to be smiling all the time. The third, not criticize anyone. Then to have acceptance to whatever happens to us. The next one was to trust and have faith in Swami all the time. Then the other commandment was that when we realize that we have to change something in our life, not procrastinate it. So don't delay the change, do it immediately. The other commandment was to spend some minutes every day to think who you are. The next was to take care, A, B, C. Be always away from bad company, close to good company. Be careful with your thoughts, words, and deeds. I have discipline. Then the other one was to remember that we're going to die. And the last one, and most important, is to think about God all the time and to repeat his name. Today, I want to share some of the experiences Swami gave me. But before that, I would like to add 2 very important disciplines or attitudes that we have to have with us all the time, that Swami repeat them all the time. One is Shama, that means forbearance. We have to see that we have this way of being, to be always tolerant, to forbear all what happens, to have this attitude of Shama, forbearance in our lives. And the next one, which is for me the most important of all, is Saranagati, surrender. We have to surrender our lives to God. What is the meaning of surrender? The meaning of surrender is not just, it comes from the war. You know, when an army conquers another army, the defeated army surrenders their weapons to the conquered one. So to really surrender in the spiritual life is to adopt the qualities of our conqueror. That means that we will adopt his ideology, his culture, his precepts of how we have to live. If we have surrendered to Swami, we have to surrender our way of being, not my way, but his way. So from now on, we have to think what he will like, what he will accept. Before doing anything, we have to consider if this is something acceptable to God. Before thinking something, we have to think this thought is worthy of God, who is omnipresent, who is by my side. Before speaking, we have to think if our words could be said in his presence. So this is the real meaning of surrender for me. So I urge all of you to surrender your way of being, your way of thinking, your ideology, your way of seeing reality, and adopt his way. Accept Sai way of living. This is very, very important. I would like to share with you I will try to have enough time to share 18 spiritual experiences that Swami gifted to me. The order is as Swami prefers, but I remember one in my life. Swami shows his presence through two ways. One is through the number 23 that appears suddenly in any moment of my life and shows me his presence. The other is the fragrance of jasmine. One day I had the experience in my house that suddenly at evening at 7 p.m. started in my living room a very intense fragrance of jasmine, as if I had jasmine flowers there. I didn't. And this lasted till next day in the morning. Next day, even more. At 7 p.m., more intense flower. And this was like that for 7 days. But the fragrance was intensifying, as if one moment it was as if I had 10,000 jasmine flowers in my living room, spread all over the corridor, even upstairs to my room. Incredible. It was really amazing. But the other was the number 23. One time, and just to share one of those experiences, I was on a business trip to United States. I had to participate in a conference with companies that I represented. And for 5 days, I had many, many meetings all day long, one meeting after the other. Some meetings were, I had a meeting with a company at 10 a.m. and with another at 10:30. Of course, the meetings were in different places. It was impossible for me to be on time. And one day I was in downtown in New York, 5th Avenue and 23rd Street, and I had a meeting all morning from 8 a.m. till noon. But it was a meeting with very important companies, Hasbro, the most important toy company at that time, and Warner Brothers. They held a meeting together, and I was an agent of both companies. I had to be there. They were not individual meetings, but with all the agents. But also at 10 a.m., I had a meeting uptown, 57 and Madison, with Marvel Comics that I represented as well. I had to be in both places, but it was very difficult because in the first meeting I had to be all morning. Anyway, 20 minutes to 10, I decided to get out of the room to go to the other meeting, and then I was going to come back to this meeting. I had my briefcase in my hand, but as I knew that I was coming back, I decided to leave it there. In the first room office I found, I left it there, knowing that no one will touch it. So I ran to the other meeting. It was winter time, no way to take a taxi, so I took a the subway. And by the time I arrived at the meeting of Marvel Comics, the meeting had already started. I went in, and they were going to show a film of a new property they were going to launch. And there is a standard in the industry. When they launch a film, they start with 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 image. But that time, instead of 10, they started by the number 23. I was really surprised, because imagine, from 23 to 0, the people will be either hypnotized or asleep, sleeping. So when I saw the number 23, I thought, Swami, what a special lila you are giving to me. But then I pay attention again to what they were saying. And by 10:30, I decided it was time to go back to my original meeting. So I left the meeting as if I was going to the bathroom, but I really left the place, took the subway again back to the original place, the meeting where Warner and Hasbro were holding for all the devotees, And I went into the subway. Another special thing happened. There was a space for me to sit. At that time in New York, the subways were very crowded. So I sat, and as I sat on this bench chair, I had an incredible experience. All reality disappeared. I was with my eyes wide open. I didn't close my eyes. But instead of seeing the outer reality, I saw images of my life. They say that when you are going to die, you see scenes of your life. I started to see one scene after the other. But all what I have seen were things that I didn't do properly from the spiritual point of view, one after the other. And then it was as if someone did this, no one did that, but I came back to reality, and I saw that the subway was stopping at the station I had to get off. I just read the name of the station and stood up, left the subway, and I was standing at the platform in a state of shock, because I said, what happened to me? What was this? And I started to recall all the images I have seen, as if Swami was showing me things that I had to change. And some of those things were not easy for me to change. So while walking back to the place I had to go, I started a dialogue with Swami. I told him, Swami, it was you who showed me this. Do you want me to change these things? And then I said, okay, if it was you, give me a proof. If you gave me that experience, let me see the number 23 again in a special way, as if I have seen it in the film you have shown before. And if you show me the number 23 in a special way, I will believe and I will try to change. How stupid I was. I didn't realize that in the spiritual way, life, you don't have to try, you have to do. Anyway, by that time I reached the building where I had to go. I took the elevator. And before entering the room where the meeting was taking place, I went to the other room where I left my suitcase. I picked it up, and when I lifted, I saw on the side of the liftcase a paper with a scotch tape on it, and the paper had the number 23 on it. So Swami showed me that it was him who had given me that experience to start the changes immediately. Another experience I recall, in the Sai Center in Argentina for a long time, even today, one of the services was to help the children that were homeless, that live on the streets. We used to go to one place near the center where they spend their time and brought them to the Sai Center and let them take a shower, clean their clothes, and gave them human values classes and food. And then they left. And they returned by themselves, they knew where things were, and they stole some things from the center because they needed money to buy drugs. We knew that they were the ones that were stealing from us, but anyway, we continued our efforts to help them. But then we realized that it was like trying to fill a bucket with a lot of holes, because those children, when they went back to the streets, they needed to survive. and they were also drug addicts, and they needed money to buy drugs or to give to the elders that they were bullying them. So we realized that this kind of service was not enough. And suddenly an idea came to do something for them, to rent a house so they could live there. As you know, this organization is free of charge, no one pays, and Argentina at that time, and even today is even worse, the economic situation was not good. Anyway, we were able to rent a house. That it was a very cheap house, a dilapidated house, because we didn't have more money to rent a better house. So we started to repair, to paint it, to put the electric wires, and we asked the children that were supposed to live there to help us. One day, there was a Sai devotee, a lady, in the house with 3 of those children, and she told them to go to the garden that was in the front of the house to remove the earth because she wanted to put some flowers there. After some time, they came back with a bag, and inside the bag, there were gold. It was gold, 14 kilograms of pure gold. They found it when they removed the earth, and their first reaction was to run away with the gold, but then they remembered all that they were taught in the human values classes, and they decided to come back. Their conscience told them that it was not proper to steal that gold. So we went to a judge, and the judge decided that the gold belonged to us. And with that gold, we bought 2 houses for abandoned children. One was for little girls that were abused, and the judges were sending them to the house. They lived there for many years. They did all the primary, secondary, high school, and university, and they are today beautiful and pure women. What happened is that one of the 3 boys that found the gold, he didn't have one leg. So we decided to buy a prosthetic leg for him. And he told us that he was really touched and he wanted to meet Sai Baba. I don't know why. There was a group of devotees flying to India, and there was still some money from that gold. So we bought a ticket to take him to India. In India, Swami gave an interview to the Argentinian group, and looking at him, he said, without us saying a word, he said, "It was me," Swami said, "it was me who put the gold there." So this is Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. If we take one step towards him, he takes 100 towards us. One day, there was an Argentinian devotee, young adult devotee, a lady, a girl who in the morning said, "How much I would like to eat something that Swami gives to me." In the afternoon, Swami called the Argentinian group for the interview. Suddenly look at her, he called her, he said, "Stand up, stretch your hand." So she did like that. I hope you will see it. And Swami put his hand over her hand. He didn't wave, just put it over her hand, and in her palm here appeared a bowl of polenta. Polenta is sweet corn, very hot and oily. And then Swami took a little piece and gave it to each one of the 30 devotees, more or less, that were in the interview room. And one time, one piece to each, second time, third time. And then Melissa, the name of that girl, said to us, she thought that nothing was going to be left for her. And when she looked at her hand, the bowl of polenta was as it was when Swami materialized it. Nothing was missing. For many years, sorry if I'm in a rush, I try to cover these experiences. One day, for many years, I was in charge of deciding which countries will perform a cultural program in the Divine Presence. Dr. Goldstein, who was in charge of overseas, appointed me in that position. So I used to receive the proposals, and those that I approved, I submitted to him, and he would present them to Swami for his final approval. Well, one day I received a proposal from a choir to sing in front of Swami. I approved it. I presented to Dr. Goldstein. He approved it. So everything went on. And while we were speaking with Goldstein about many things in the United States and in Argentina, a joke started. Because I asked Dr. Goldstein to call the ashram and ask them to prepare a platforms, these different stairs where the choir will stand, so all will be seen with wood. And I told him to ask him to the ashram authorities because I will pay more attention to him than to me. So he did that. But then we started the joke. What if they don't do this platform in a proper way while the choir is singing, it's broken and all fell? Well, that would be a disaster, we said. What would we do if that happens? Dr. Goldstein at that time was very heavy, and I'm the worst singer in Latin America, or in the world. I'm a very bad singer, and always out of tune. So we said, well, if that happens, I said, you, Michael, will dance and I will sing. And I'm sure that Swami will be very amused. He said, of course, Swami will be very happy, and if Swami is happy, everything will be all right. From that day onwards, whenever we had a telephone call or a fax or anything, we will put that joke, be ready to sing, be ready to dance. The day came when we finally went to the ashram, and the day of the cultural presentation was on, and this was going to be in the Purnachandra Hall. So Dr. Goldstein and myself, we were standing inside the Purnachandra Hall by the side of the door where Swami came in from the Cycle 1 hall inside the Purnachandra Hall. Each one of us on one side of the door with the palms folded like that, waiting for Swami. Finally, Swami came, opened the door, looked at us, and he said to Dr. Goldstein, are you going to dance? And to me, are you going to sing? So he's omniscient. Nothing escapes him. You can think that your WhatsApp, your emails are private, but they are not private to him. So be aware, he's watching everything we do. Many years ago, a flight attendant from Argentina was traveling to Cuba. And she said that on one of her flights, he met a Hatha Yoga teacher there, and he spoke about Swami to him. This flight attendant was a Sai devotee. And he asked me for a picture of Swami to give it to that Hatha Yoga teacher. I gave her a photograph, and on her next trip to Cuba, she handed the photograph to that Hatha Yoga teacher. The day after he received that photograph, Vibhuti started to materialize on the photograph. And one of his students had to go through a heart surgery. So he decided to give some of the Vibhuti to that student. The next day, the student was taken to the surgery room. So the surgery was going to be performed. But before starting the surgery, they checked his heart and nothing was found wrong. Again, nothing. So the final story, the surgery was not performed. That boy was 14 years old, I think, was completely healed. I spoke about this experience in front of Swami. He was very happy with it. And because of that, the story started to spread in Cuba. And finally, there were more than 100 Sai groups all over the island of Cuba. The secret police, the government sent the secret police to the Sai meetings to check because everything was forbidden there. And one of these secret police members became a Sai devotee. This is how Swami spreads his name and his divinity all over the world. No one from Cuba ever traveled to India, but they still meet, even though it is forbidden there. And some days they have like Akanda bhajans almost all day, singing bhajans on his birthday. 300 people attend the main center. And in Cuba, you don't have a very easy way to transport yourself. Sometimes you have to walk 15 or 20 minutes to take a bus. Anyway, the Sai devotees attend the Sai meetings. One day, I was in Prasanthi Nilayam. The Sai organization was just starting in Argentina. We were a very few group of devotees. And we're in a room discussing about how to proceed. We were 8 devotees in the room. And suddenly one issue appeared. I had one thought. The other 7 or 8 people, I think we were 8 or 9, thought in the opposite way. So we started to discuss. I was sure that my position was the right one, so I didn't relent. They were sure that their position was okay, was right. So we continued like 30 or 40 minutes. Suddenly, while one brother was talking, I spoke to Swami within myself, and I said, Swami, what should I do? Should I continue with my position, or I should shut up my mouth and give one step backwards? The moment I asked Swami that, a brother sitting just in front of me said, Leonardo, you should shut up your mouth and give one step backwards. I did so, of course. Swami's answer came instantly, immediately. Still till today, I think that I was right. But this organization grew because unity was much more important than one thing, than one direction. Swami values more unity than anything else. So this organization grew. We had more than 150 site centers and groups all over Argentina because we continue with that unity. Another trip to India. I was a psychologist, but then through a very important miracle that I will not share today because I have no time, I started to represent American and European and Japanese film companies in Latin America, especially in Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Bolivia. That gave me the opportunity to travel to all those countries to spread Swami's message. But always when I met with clients in Argentina, I spoke about Swami. And one of my clients was a confectionery company called Stani. Now was bought by Cadbury. It's an UK company. And I spoke to the owner and CEO of that company about Swami. He was not interested at all, but he listened to me because he respected me and thought that what I was telling him was true. One day, one of his daughters who was working with him called me, and she said, Leonardo, when is your next trip to India? And I said, next April. So she said, can I go with you? I said, of course you can. The next day, her sister called me and asked me the same question. Leonardo, my sister told me that you are going to India next April. Can I join you also? I said, of course you can. The next day, the day after that, that sister, the second one, called me, and she told me that her son, who was 12 or 14 years old, woke up in the morning and told her, Mommy, in the middle of the night, a man appeared in my room. I was very scared. I was going to scream, but he told me to be calm. He spoke to me, and then he vanished. It was not a dream. I was fully awake. And the mother asked him how he looked like. And he said, with an orange robe and a halo hair. At that time, in their house, there was not a picture of Swami. Swami was not so known in Argentina. The boy had no chance to see a photograph of Swami. So the mother called me immediately. She realized that it was Swami who appeared in his room. And she was really surprised. So April came, we went to India. We were in Kodaikanal. And I told them that Swami, when he gives darshan, sometimes he materialized vibhuti. First day, nothing. Second day, nothing. Third day, nothing. They came to my room and said, Leonardo, you were cheating us. Swami doesn't do anything. Why you made us come here? I told them, wait, be patient. Next morning, Swami called us for an interview. I said, okay, that's it. Because always Swami starts the interview by materializing Vibhuti to the ladies. First interview in Swami's history that he didn't materialize anything at all. I was thinking, Swami, please do something, but nothing. But suddenly he looked at one of the sisters and told her, "You want a child, right?" And she said, "Yes." And he replied, "I will help you." And then he turned to the other sister and put his hand over her head and said, "I will help you also." The good thing is that in the evening, they didn't come to my room to complain about anything. The next morning, Swami, while giving darshan, he went in front of them and suddenly stopped in front of them and materialized Vibhuti and gave it to them. And both of them saw something that we usually don't see. They saw little stars behind Swami's hand, like a cloud of stars. And then Swami left and came back to her, to the mother of the child to whom he appeared in the room, waved his hand, materialized a lock, a medallion, and gave it to her and said, "This is for your son," and left. Next day, again in darshan time, he was in. They were in a third line. Swami was giving darshan, and suddenly he stopped, waved his hand, and materialized a plum, and throw it to them. But the plum, instead of doing this, it went straight to them and felt 90 degrees on the hand of one of the sisters. They ate it until today. They complained that they didn't keep the seed. The next day they left. And when I came back to Argentina, I knew why they went to India. One of the sisters couldn't have babies. They went to all the most important doctors in Argentina and in the United States, and she couldn't have babies. After that trip to India, she became pregnant and she has now 2 boys. The second girl, to whom Swami put his hand over her head, had a neurological problem for which she had to take pills every day of her life. Since Swami put her hand, she never again took a pill. She was completely cured. Both of them, they are well known in Argentina. Years later, went to a TV program. They were interviewed. And in one of the prime times in Argentina, in one of the most important free TV stations of Argentina, they spoke about their experience. This is how Swami spread his presence all over Argentina. I could say that 80-90% of the Argentinian people know about Sai Baba. They are not Sai devotees, but if you say Sai Baba, they will know about him. You may take a taxi, and in the taxi you might find a photograph of Swami. You may see a TV soap opera, and one of the characters may perform as a Sai devotee. This is how Swami spread his presence all over this country and in many countries of Latin America. Another time about spreading his presence, I was invited to a TV program, one of the most important TV programs in Argentina at that time, on free TV, at prime time also. There was a program where 2 hosts interview you and you speak for half an hour, and then there is a panel of public who will ask questions to you. And well, they let me speak. The hosts made some questions, but then they realized that the whole hour went on, and there was no time for the public who was present there to make any questions. So they said, "Do you mind to come next week?" I said, "No, of course not." Imagine, prime TV program, a very important program on Argentinian TV to speak about Swami. I was delighted. I said, "Swami, thank you." Next morning, I was at my house. I received a telephone call. The host of that program had, at that time, a radio program, who was perhaps the hottest program on radio in the morning. And they called me and they told me if I had no problem to be interviewed by that host. he wanted to ask me some questions about the TV program last day. I said, of course not. The host started the program by saying that, forgive me, I forgot to tell you that when the program was over last day, I gave Vibhuti to the host, and I told him what the Vibhuti was for and to use it if he needed. So he started the radio program by telling me that one person received Vibhuti and gave it to one relative who was in a critical situation, just going to die in the intense care unit in the last moments of her life. And he gave Vibhuti to that lady, very old lady, but the lady, instead of dying, started to recover. And she was taken outside the intense care unit. So he asked me about that, and I explained about the Vibhuti, and then I was for half an hour without any intermission, without any stop for any other publicity or advertising. I was for half an hour speaking at the most important radio program at that time about Swami and his miracles and his deeds. When the program was over, I remained online, and the host told me that it was him who gave the Vibhuti I gave him the last day to his auntie, who was dying, and the auntie recovered. That's why he was so touched that he decided to call me and ask me about the Vibhuti. So this is how Swami takes care of spreading his message everywhere. One day I was in an interview with Swami, and one lady stood, and she had a japamala that Swami made for her some time ago, I think a couple of years ago. And the japamala was broken. And it was just that kind of japamala that has a metal string and like pearls. And she stood up, and the japamala was very long. It touched the floor. And asked Swami, can you repair it? And Swami stood up from his chair and took it. And when he took it, he did like this. And the japamala went in slow motion in the air, and the end of the japamala touched his hand. And when it touched his hand, it was repaired. The metal string was fused. Fused, I think this is the English word, I hope, and gave back to her. This is one of Swami's leelas, divine leelas that show us that he is really omnipotent. Not only repairing this metal string, but also how I saw this japamala going in slow motion in the air. He defies the physical laws, as the same way as when he materialized the plant, that instead of going like this, he went like this and then like this. The physical laws doesn't exist for him. Another physical law. I went to Asunción, the capital of Paraguay, to speak at a public meeting. At that time, in Paraguay, there were very few Sai devotees, and they were able to get the auditorium of a shopping mall with a capacity for 600 people. You know, it's a big auditorium. So I was ready for the public meeting. I was going to start, I think, at 7 or 8 p.m. But suddenly in the morning, it started to rain. Asunción, Paraguay is a country where when it rains, it rains. It's like the sky falls, you know, and it's like the monsoon in India. It's a tropical country. And when it rains so heavily, no one goes out. So I said, no one will go to the public meeting. It's impossible with this day. It continued to rain like that till 2 hours before the public meeting. And 2 hours before it started, the sky cleared, blue sky, no more rain, and the hall was full with 600 people. And another thing that happened was that the small group of the Sai devotees decided to give a flower and a piece of bread to each one of the attendees. So they had these big bags with pieces of bread and the flowers. And they started to give one flower and one piece of bread to each one who came. When there were no more pieces of bread and no more flowers, no one else came. And needless to say, 25 minutes after the public meeting was over, it started to rain again. This is Swami. One day there were two young Argentinians in India, and Swami gave them many interviews. You know, when Swami decides to grant his grace at full hands to someone, these two boys received, 7, 8, 9 interviews in that trip. In one of the interviews, they were along with Swami in the small room, and one of them had so much confidence after so many meetings. Swami asked him, "What do you want?" And he was clever enough. He said, instead of a material thing, he said, "Swami, give me a vision of God." And Swami replied, "You are having a vision of God," pointing at himself. So this was a very, very good lesson for me. Swami told the boys to go back to Argentina, but their ticket had expired, so they wanted to remain in India. So they thought they were clever, and they said, "Swami, we don't have ticket to go back, we have to stay here." And Swami said, "But the World Bank is in my hand." And he waved his hand and materialized US dollars. New, and they were like stick one to each other. One of the boys owed $300 to the other. So Swami started to give $100 to one, $100 to the other. $100 to one, $100 to the other. When he finished, they left the interview room, and the one that owed $300 to the other had $300 less, and the other had $300 more. Swami told them, "Go back to Argentina and continue your studies." I think that I went to UK and I spoke to you, and many of these experiences I have already shared. You will excuse me if I repeat them. Perhaps now there are new people listening to this call. Perhaps you have to listen to it again. So I ask for your forgiveness if I repeat some of the experiences. One day I was in a trip to many Latin American countries. I think I was going to 7 different Latin American countries to speak at public meetings, and also to appoint the officials to the office bearers to the central councils or coordinating committees of each country. All was ready. Then I had to go, after that trip, I had to go to United States, to New York, for a business meeting I had there. Everything was arranged. I bought a ticket through American Airlines. My first stop was in Bogota, the capital of Colombia. I left from Buenos Aires. I made the stopover in Miami. I arrived at Miami at 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning, and my flight to Bogota was leaving at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. That same day at 7 p.m., I had to attend a public meeting in the auditorium of the University of Bogota. The auditorium was for 2,000 people. Everything was ready. I arrived at Miami. I went through immigration and customs, and I had to wait till 4 p.m., at least 2 p.m. to board the plane. There are many hours. So I went to the prayer room to meditate. Then I had breakfast. I went to one place, to the other, to one store, to the other. I read it. The Miami airport is very big. They have different concourses. I went everywhere. At 2 p.m., I decided to check in for my flight. And when I went to check in, I put my hand in my bag where I had this purse. At that time, the travel agencies gave us a plastic purse where our tickets were inside. The tickets were not electronic, were paper. And I had my tickets, my passport, my money, everything in that purse. That plastic, I don't know what is the name, plastic thing. I put my hand in the bag to take it. I was not there. I couldn't believe it. You know, I had already gone to have breakfast. I had everything. I became crazy because if you don't have the tickets, you cannot board the plane. If you don't have a passport, you cannot fly. If you lose your tickets, the airline might give them back to you after some days. But if you lose your passport, the embassy will only give you a temporary passport to go back to your country. For me, it was a disaster because everything was arranged. That same day, I was one of the main speakers at that public meeting. And everything was arranged in all the other 6 countries where devotees had already bought their tickets to attend the selection of office bearers, the public meetings. You know, in Argentina, to get a new visa to go to the United States, it took almost a month. Also, to take a new passport will take a long time. So I became crazy. I started to run to every place I remember I had been, like crazy. You know, I went to one store to the other. I went to Miss and Found, Lost and Found, to see if someone had found it and left it there, nothing. Suddenly I remembered that Swami says that if you have to pray to him, I remember Swami, of course. I was all the time saying, Swami, Swami. But I remember that Swami says that if you want to ask him something, you have to do it with intensity. With such an intensity that one of 2 things happens. Even you give up because you are exhausted, or he gives up because he's tired to listen to you, so he gives you what you want. So I realized that that was the way to ask him. And I thought, I cannot sit on a chair and ask him, they will think I'm crazy. So I went to the most private place I found. I went to the bathroom and I closed the door. I sat on the toilet and I asked, saying, Swami, please, Swami, please, Swami, please. Not out loud, because someone could think that there is a crazy man inside, but with my mind and my heart, I said, Swami, please, Swami, please. I was 45 minutes saying, Swami, please, Swami, please. And that was a time when I had no more energy. I always say that if someone came with a gun and said, repeat it once more or I will shoot you, I would say, shoot, because I had no more energy. I was exhausted. So I stood up and I said, Swami, thy will be done. And I thought, well, I will ask someone to give me a coin to call the embassy and ask for to be sent back to Argentina. When I came out of that bathroom, one of the dozens of bathrooms that are at the Miami airport, one lady was standing in front of me, staring at my eyes very, very firmly. She looked at me and she said, Sir, is this yours? She had this plastic purse in her hand, gave it to me. I went to her and I said, yes, yes. And I opened it and everything was inside, you know, this monkey mind to see if everything is there. I did this and raised my head. And when I raised my head, the lady was vanished. It took me 2 seconds to do this. There was no physical time for her to run anywhere. Even if she was Usain Bolt running, I could have seen her. She vanished in the thin air. So I took the plane, and you know, Swami is very playful. When I reached the Bogota, before starting, the plane was delayed 40 minutes because they had some problems. And all the time was just perfect for me to arrive at the public meeting. But with that delay, I was going to miss the public meeting. When I arrived at the Bogota airport, you have to press a button to see if you go through customs or not. I said, well, Swami, at least give me a green light. I pressed, the button was red light. Go through customs. And I said, that's it. I had to queue, make a queue, no way to reach the public meeting. Finally, when I left, someone was waiting for me. They took me directly to the public meeting. And I went directly to the public meeting, of course, had already started. So they took me to the stage. I sat down, and as soon as I sat on the chair, they said, and now is the turn of Leonardo Gutter. They did not do that because I have arrived. It was my turn. I was supposed to speak after the person who spoke before me. And when I started to speak, and it seems that I continued what the other person has said. And I didn't hear anything. But Swami is the doer who tells you what to say and what not to say. I don't know how much time I will share. I have many more experiences, but I will share one that was very important to me. It was the experience that I had when I went to India for the first time. I was there for 45 days. I had spent all the money I had, and I left India on March 1982. And when I was leaving the ashram, I don't know why, till today, a desire came to my heart to go back to India in September. I had no money left to buy another ticket to go to India. But I asked Swami in my heart. And I told the friends I made in that first trip to India, don't miss me, I will be back in September. So I went back to Argentina, knowing that I could not raise the money to buy a ticket. At that time, working as a psychologist, I made $100 per month. I had started my new business that Swami gave me, but it was just starting. But Swami intervened. In the month of June, a person came to the office of the new business and said, I'm a show live producer and I want to make a live show in Ecuador, and I want to get a license to use the Marvel characters, Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, in a live show for children. So I contacted Marvel and we issued a contract for that person. I had the original costumes of those characters, and he asked me for the original costumes to use them in the live show, but the costumes were very expensive. So I didn't know if I would see again this person if I give them the costumes. So I add a clause to the contract that I had to go with him to Ecuador to come back with the costumes. And he agreed. So he bought a ticket for me, a 30 days valid ticket, and he has agreed to pay all the expenses, hotel, food, etc. So I went with this group, this producer, to Ecuador, and for 1 month we were touring all over Ecuador, presenting the live show. The last day, when the tour ended, I was supposed to return to Argentina the next day. My ticket was expiring the next day, but suddenly came to my mind the thought, no one knew about Swami there, and I thought I had to speak about Swami here. So, but my ticket was I was supposed to leave the next day. So I went to the office of Argentina Airlines, and I asked them if I could return in the next flight. There were 2 flights per week. So my flight was I was supposed to leave on Tuesday. The next flight was next Friday. And I spoke with the employee there, and I said, please, let me return the next flight. She said, no way. Your ticket expires tomorrow. You have to go. And for half an hour, I was arguing with her. And suddenly I said, well, let me know how much it costs to open it, and I will stay. She said, if you want to open it for 1 year, you have to pay $100. I said, why you didn't start with that? So I gave her $100. She opened my ticket. And when I left the airline offices, I realized how I'm going to speak about Swami. I cannot go to a public park, stand on a bench and start speaking about him. They would think that he's a crazy person here. So I realized the difficulty of my desire. I was in the city of Guayaquil. One brother of the other spiritual organization where I was before, he moved from Argentina to Ecuador, and he was living in Quito, the capital of Ecuador. So I was able to get his phone number. I called him and I explained to him, as he was already in a spiritual path, what I wanted to do. And he said, don't worry, I will help you, but you have to come to Quito. And I said, you know how? He said, no, I don't know how we're going to do, but at least we will be 2 trying. Your chances will expand 100%. So I took a flight and I went to Quito. On Monday, I had this desire in my heart. Next Friday, I was giving a talk in a public place about Swami. My friend contacted a Catholic priest. This Catholic priest had a very broad mind, and he agreed to let me speak. He had a yoga teacher, and he had a hatha yoga organization, hatha yoga place, and he agreed to let me speak next Saturday. So on Monday I had the thought. Next Saturday I was giving a talk to a whole crowd with people about Swami. When my talk finished, this priest came to me and he said, "What you have said is very interesting. I am publishing a magazine that I distribute freely all over Ecuador. If you don't mind to write an article about Sai Baba, we'll publish it there. And if you have a photograph of Swami, I will put it on the cover of the magazine." Imagine, my whole desire was to speak about Swami. Not only now I spoke to this crowded auditorium, but it was going to be published in that magazine. So I said, of course, I will write something. Next day, my flight was scheduled for the next Tuesday. And on Sunday, this friend invited me to a concert, classic musical concert. I had nothing to do, so I went there. And when we left the concert in Quito, there is a beautiful weather, springtime during the day, but in the night it gets very cold. When we left the place, he met one person to whom he was preparing an advertising campaign, and they started to speak. And they spoke, and I was freezing, because I was not prepared for that cold weather. And that person, when he saw me, he told my friend, "Listen, let's stop here. Your friend will get a cold. So let's continue tomorrow. I invite you to my house to have lunch." And he left. And my friend said, you must come. I said, "No, I will not go to a business lunch." He said, "First, two important things." He said, "First, you have nothing else to do. And the second, it will be very impolite. If you don't go, it will not be good for me." And not to make him uncomfortable, I went. And that person, the person to whom he was preparing this advertising campaign, was an industrialist, a very rich man, former ambassador of Ecuador to Israel, a very refined person, very mundane person, not interested in spirituality at all. He was interested only in the pleasures of life. But suddenly, I don't know why, I started to speak in the middle of the lunch about Swami. For 5 minutes, I spoke about Swami. And suddenly that person stopped me and he said, "Do you mind to go to India with me?" I said, "No, I don't mind at all." He said, "Okay, tomorrow on Monday, I'll go to the travel agency. You come, I will buy 2 tickets and we'll go to India." I said, "Of course." I thought he was making a joke. When the lunch ended, I went back to my hotel. Next morning, I was in my room and I thought about it and I said, what if it is not a joke? So I took a taxi and I went to the address that he gave me. And it was a travel agency. And he showed up, he bought 2 tickets. And on September the 2nd, I was in Whitefield with him. The person told me that he did that on the plane because they found a tumor in his palate. And he he went to the United States to a very oncology hospital clinic in the United States, and they found that he had a malignant tumor and nothing could be done. So when he heard about me speaking about Swami and his healing powers, he had nothing to lose, and that's why he bought the tickets. It was September 1982. We were in Whitefield. We had to rent a house like a kilometer from the ashram. We went in bicycles to the ashram. We had to take our water to bath from a well. In the room, there were things to avoid the ants to go into the bed. Imagine that rich man in that scenario, in that condition. He was complaining all day long. You know what they say, start the day with God, spend the day with God, end the day with God? He started the day complaining, spend the day complaining, end the day complaining. But one day, it was Thursday or Sunday, I don't remember, when they sing bhajans all day long. He was a very fat man, he couldn't be seated more than 5 minutes. But that day he decided to remain. After the morning bhajans, instead of standing up and going to the room we had, he decided to stay there, waiting for the afternoon darshan. I left. When I came back before darshan, before Swami came, I found him crying, sobbing, crying like a little baby. And I said, Teodoro, what is happening to you? He told me, Swami was just in front of me, asked me to open my mouth, put his hand inside my mouth, took something, and said, your cancer is canceled. You are cured. No one saw physical expression of Swami, but a couple of days later, Swami left to Prasanthi, went there, and then we returned to Ecuador. And he went to the doctor, and his cancer had disappeared. He went back to the United States to that oncologic center, and the cancer was not there anymore. So he decided to publish a magazine with his experiences, all the photographs he had taken, and he printed 10,000 magazines, which he distributed freely all over Ecuador. I wanted to be in the ashram with Swami in September. I was there. He was cured. He became a Sai devotee. His family became Sai devotees. I know that the time is over that we had. I could continue, but I hope that I was able to convey to you the divinity of Swami, how he's still with us. He will always be with us. He was with us not since we were born, many lives before, and he will be with us till we merge in him. I hope in this life, if not in the next one. I pray that all of you will feel his presence, will feel his miracles in your lives. And most of anything, you will feel his divine love. I send you all my love. Thank you very, very much. Sai Ram.
Thank you so much
Sai Ram.
for talk. You took us from Argentina to Ecuador to Miami, US.
I cannot hear you.
There's another 23.
Comes and goes.
Oh. So, just like you show of praying from your service project you mentioned with the home and finding the gold as well.
Yes.
And then Swami explaining in the interview room to say that it was him who placed it there, and it was just us doing the service. And then also the TV and the radio show. So wonderful, wonderful experiences. And thank you very much, Brother Leonardo Gutter.
Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you very much. Sai Ram.
I'd also like to also introduce next week's talk as well as Sundaraya from the US, who is Swami's alumni. Brother Sundaraya also had the fortune of staying with Bhagwan as well for a few months. He enjoyed such experiences, close proximity there with us in the next 2 weeks as well. So good to welcome in Brother Sundaraya next Sunday as well. Jai Sai Ram, everyone.